Peace feels possible now. But we never disarmed. Protocol Revenant wasn't our revenge. It was our reflection, asterisk. And now, the galaxy sees us for what we are, asterisk. You've just witnessed the untold story of Earth's reckoning. But did you catch the warning buried in our piece? If you made it this far, you are exactly the kind of viewer this universe needs. Subscribe to HFY Sci-Fi Love and War Story for more true accounts from the edges of extinction. Comment below. If Earth can do this, what else have we been hiding? Like, share, and prepare, because the next message isn't a warning. It's a beginning. The stars watched us fall. Now they'll watch us rise. We always thought the first contact would be peaceful. It wasn't. The day the sky fell, I was ironing my daughter's white recital dress. She was in the other room, practicing Chopin on an old upright piano, her small fingers chasing notes with such earnest determination that it brought tears to my eyes. Then, the music stopped. At first, I thought she'd made a mistake. But it wasn't her. The ground trembled under our feet. A low rumble rolled through the air, so deep it felt like the sky itself was growling. I stepped outside. And there it was. A shadow, wide as the horizon, darker than storm clouds, colder than silence. Above us, something vast was blotting out the sun. A vessel, no, a cathedral of black metal, hanging motionless in the air like a suspended monolith from another dimension. It didn't hum. It didn't roar. It simply existed, without apology, without haste. Then the light came. Pillars of searing white erupted from its underbelly, orbital lances that sliced through the upper atmosphere like surgical knives. Our defense satellites burst one by one, bright flashes against the blue. Like stars dying in reverse. They called it a coordinated planetary strike. But it felt more like a divine punishment. Earth's proud fleets, the carriers, the drones, the orbital guns, all burned up in minutes. The ground shook with each impact. Not like an earthquake, but like the bones of the planet groaning under stress. My comms panel crackled to life, static, then screams, then silence. Entire continents vanished from the grid. Nuclear failsafes deactivated. Entire command posts turned to ash before they could send a distress signal. The skies over New York, Beijing, Johannesburg, filled with more ships. Black, bulbous, and grotesquely symmetrical, like beetles made of obsidian and hatred. They hung in the clouds, casting distorted shadows that warped light itself. Then, the message came. It played on every screen, every frequency, every neural feed. A voice, mechanical yet mocking. Lay down arms. Earth is annexed by the Krayth Dominion. It wasn't a demand. It was a declaration. Across the globe, leaders scrambled for response. Some called for negotiation. Others screamed for retaliation. None of it mattered. We were no longer part of the equation. I remember looking at my daughter, still holding her tiny hands above the piano keys, frozen in place, eyes wide with confusion. And in that moment, I realized something devastating. They hadn't just broken our defenses. They had shattered our illusion. We weren't ready. Not technologically, not spiritually. We had spent centuries gazing at the stars, dreaming of contact. But in those dreams, we were always the heroes. The brave explorers. The wise diplomats. Never the prey. In the days that followed, cities crumbled like sandcastles under a black tide. The Krayth didn't even deploy ground troops, not at first. They didn't need to. Their orbital presence alone was enough to force compliance. Oceans boiled in places. The air shimmered with chemical distortions. Weather patterns twisted unnaturally, as if the Earth itself were recoiling in pain. And yet, humanity did what it always does when backed into a corner. We adapted. We survived. Small bands of resistance formed, former soldiers, hackers, farmers, even children. Armed with makeshift weapons, old world faith, and desperate hope. That's when we found it. An abandoned NATO facility buried beneath the Greenland ice shelf. Frozen. Forgotten. Unmapped on any current satellite image. On the rusted metal door was a single phrase. Project Revenant. There were no guards. No signs of life. Just an automated biometric scanner that activated the moment I touched it. The doors hissed open, releasing air that hadn't tasted the surface in over 100 years. A pale blue glow spilled out from within, a light that seemed to bend around corners, twist behind shadows. Inside were weapons unlike anything I'd ever seen. Armored suits that pulsed with neural energy. Cores that hummed with antimatter signatures. Files, not just military schematics, but philosophical doctrines on how to fight without being seen. It was clear, this place wasn't built for war. It was built for revenge. And so, beneath miles of ancient ice, in a room untouched by sunlight since before I was born, I heard a voice, deep, synthetic, but undeniably human, speak for the first time in what must have been a century. Commander authorization accepted. Protocol Revenant, priming. In that moment, I knew something our invaders didn't. They hadn't conquered Earth. Not yet. Beneath the ice of the Arctic, where even the light of the sun cannot penetrate, I stumbled upon a world long forgotten, not by humanity, but by humankind itself. The people I met there were not the ghosts of some ancient civilization, yet they weren't quite human either. They were survivors of a time that had passed, living remnants of a secret past buried in the frozen wilderness. They weren't soldiers, nor famous scientists, they were ordinary people who had once walked the earth, now living in isolation, hidden from the eyes of the world. These engineers, researchers, and strategists were the last keepers of a secret so vast, so terrifying, that even humanity had forgotten it. They had witnessed the collapse of our civilization firsthand, and in their wake, they had decided to bury everything that might have brought us to the brink of destruction once again. Earth had a secret, Commander. One of the elderly scientists spoke to me, his voice low, almost a whisper, as if afraid that simply speaking the words would awaken something ancient and dangerous. He looked at me, his eyes wide, as though he were struggling with the weight of an unbearable truth. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't an army. It was a decision. A decision no one dared face. Humanity's true history wasn't just one of war, of reaching for the stars. The real history we had forgotten, the history buried under ice and snow, was about a world haunted by power. A power so overwhelming that we could not allow it to see the light of day again. After centuries of war, of conflict, and of creating technologies that threatened to destroy everything, humanity made a choice to bury the darkest sciences we had ever created. Super AI, bio-warfare, and time-phase cannons, we had developed technologies capable of ripping apart entire planets. We could have used them to end it all, to conquer the galaxy, but we chose not to. Instead, we buried them. We wanted peace. But peace, we knew, was never guaranteed. So we built the Revenant network, underground labs, sleeper agents, and hidden systems, a final card, a last line of defense. And now, here I was, standing before the control panel. My hands trembled not from fear, but from the weight of responsibility. The password was burned into my mind, the last gift my father had given me before he disappeared into the shadows of this underground world. He had been part of this, part of preparing for the day Earth would stop pretending. I swallowed hard and keyed in the sequence from his final letter. Revenant.activate.omega. And the lights came on. The room hummed to life, the eerie glow of dormant technology awakening around me. I could feel the deep vibration in the walls, as if the network itself had been waiting for this moment, waiting for the signal to begin. The machines that had once been abandoned, left to rust in the cold darkness, now pulsed with new life. It wasn't just a system being activated. It was humanity's last chance. The Revenant network was no longer a myth. It was real. And it was ready. As I stood there, surrounded by the remnants of a forgotten war, I realized something vital. We had chosen peace. But peace had never been the true goal. The goal had been survival, our survival. Now, with everything on the line, the question wasn't whether we could avoid war anymore. The question was, how far would we go to ensure that humanity would never be weak again? This was the beginning of something we had hoped to avoid, a revelation of who we truly were and the terrible technologies we had hidden away. But as the lights flickered and the Revenant network came online, I understood the galaxy wasn't ready for us to be anything less than human. And it was about time the universe learned that. We didn't strike from orbit. We struck from within, like blood vessels bursting in the mind of a god. Exactly 72 hours after the activation of Project Revenant, the world above still believed Earth was broken. The Krayth ships floated triumphantly across our sky like judgment passed. But beneath the surface, and inside the silence of their own code, we were already awake. You see, Krayth technology wasn't their own. Not truly. It was a mirror we had given them decades ago, shattered just enough to distort their reflection, but polished in all the right places to let our fingers through. Back when humanity was still integrating peacefully into the galactic community, we offered knowledge in exchange for protection. It was theater. Every algorithm we handed over, every uplift we accepted, was laced with dormant instruction sets, cryptic to them, sacred to us. They built their empire on scaffolding we designed to collapse on command. And when the command came, we didn't shout. We whispered. This is Earth. You've mistaken mercy for weakness. That ends now. The message pulsed across their networks like a heartbeat resurrected, silent at first, then deafening in its spread. Entire fleets received it simultaneously. Code unraveled like threads pulled from ancient cloth. AI command centers blinked. Sensor arrays rotated in confusion. And then, the skies burned with our fire. We were never gone. Across every continent, every orbital lane, every forgotten mining colony, they saw what they thought were humans, plumbers, nurses, dancers, librarians. We lived beside them. Spoke their languages. Played their games. They thought us simple. Predictable. But we were seeds. Every Revenant sleeper agent had a neural key buried in their cerebrum, dormant until now. When activated, it awakened not just memory, but purpose. I was once a linguistics professor. I taught alien syntax to first-year university students. But on the 73rd hour, I felt my pulse sync with something ancient, a rhythm hidden in the lower brainstem, like an ancestral drum. And then, I remembered everything. The training. The missions never carried out. The promise, if the stars betray us, we become their reckoning. Our armor wasn't made of metal. It was made of history. Crafted from graphene diamond weave and lined with living circuits, the Revenant suits hummed as they bonded to our bodies. Not worn, merged. They adjusted to every nerve impulse, every micro-expression. The outer plating shimmered not with color, but with intention. When I walked in it, I didn't feel strong. I felt inevitable. We didn't reclaim cities. We dismantled their fleets. Not with brute force, but with elegance. We boarded them in silence, our teleportation systems phasing us into their corridors undetected. Technology they thought extinct. Ethics they thought obsolete. Their ships were alive in a way, part organic, part machine, breathing through plasma ducts and singing in subsonic frequencies. But we had learned to silence those songs. Our weapons didn't fire in bursts. They sang back, counterharmonics tuned to Krayth biology. They didn't explode. They resonated. One blast, and their guards collapsed, not dead, but disconnected. Isolated from their hives. We weren't hunting soldiers. We were harvesting fear. And it worked. We took their bridges, their engine rooms, their weapons bays. We didn't just steal their ships, we rewrote their purpose, line by line, until they obeyed new masters. Their neural command channels? Compromised. Their navigation systems? Recalibrated to Earth's gravity well. Their AI captains? Given new instructions, and made to watch. We didn't do this out of vengeance. We did it because they had to understand. For too long, Earth had played a role. A polite guest in a cold, galactic mansion. We attended councils, signed charters, whispered in circles. But now, we had torn off the mask. And what lay beneath wasn't monstrous. It was human. The kind of human that built pyramids and particle accelerators. That painted cathedrals while burning empires. That could write poetry and wage war in the same breath. They wanted to know who we were. Now, they would never forget. The bridge of the Krayth flagship was colder than I imagined. Not in temperature, but in presence. The walls pulsed with residual energy, raw and blue like trapped lightning, still reeling from our override. Their command nodes flickered, glitching in slow spirals of disobedience, like a dying brain confused by its own heartbeat. I stood at the center of it all. Around me, Krayth commanders knelt, armor scorched, limbs twitching from residual neural feedback. Their once mighty weapons, now puddles of smoldering black glass, hissed where they had fallen. A grotesque bouquet of steam, ozone, and fear curled in the recycled air. They didn't speak. Krayth don't beg. Not out loud. But I could feel the tremor beneath their exoskeletons. The twitch of mandibles, the subtle curl of antennae flattened in resignation. Their ships had turned on them. Their fleets obeyed our code. Their gods had failed to answer. I let the silence stretch, long enough to echo. Then I spoke. You came to conquer Earth. You thought we were primitive. But we let you believe that, because we hoped you'd be better than this. No one moved. Even the ship's AI, some semi-organic hybrid, held its breath, as if it too wanted to hear the truth it had once denied. Now, you'll answer for the lives lost, I continued. But we won't destroy you, because we're not monsters. Just humans. At our limit. My voice didn't shake. But it wasn't anger that powered me. It was the weight of restraint finally dropped. We had records. Everything. Logged. Preserved. Untouched until the moment mattered. We showed them Krayth plans dated years before the invasion, detailing Earth's subjugation, resource extraction quotas, proposed genetic trials. We broadcast intercepted transmissions from council agents advising the Krayth on acceptable collateral. Memos, diagrams, even bodycam footage from the first orbital strike. One file in particular silenced the galaxy, a council directive marked eyes only, listing Earth not as an ally, nor a threat, but a wild variable. One that must be managed before it matures. We aired it all. Across all frequencies, all languages, all borders. Translated by our most ancient AI linguists, wrapped in quantum envelopes no firewalls could withstand. There was no room for denial. The council responded, finally. They called it a mistake. A rogue operation. An unfortunate misunderstanding. I watched the broadcast from the Krayth command chair, its living leather still warm from its last occupant. Their spoke beings wore expressions crafted in political labs. Measured tones. Structured grief. Not a word of accountability. Not a whisper of remorse. Only fear. Not of what we had done, but of what else we might do. So I answered them. We didn't send a warhead. We sent a choice. Recognize Earth's independence, I said. Or see what else we've buried. Not a threat. A warning. A mirror. Back on Earth, our systems pulsed like a reawakened heart. Cities that had been left in ruins were humming again, lit not by fossil grids, but by deep-tech capacitors previously sealed beneath oceans and fault lines. The sky was no longer theirs. It was ours. Dotted with our ships, some old, reborn with silent engines. Others, new. Almost too new. Crafted not for battle, but for understanding. But make no mistake. We had not disarmed. Our planet now throbbed with invisible walls, vibrating at frequencies no known weapon could penetrate without dissolving. Atmosphere regulators filtered spaceborne spores. Lunar satellites triangulated for signs of intent. Our oceans? They stirred with autonomous things, biomechanical forms older than memory, trained to respond to aggression with poetic violence. And yet, we waited. Not for war, but for acknowledgement. We had spent centuries pretending to be civilized, playing by interstellar rules designed to favor the already powerful. We accepted scraps in the name of diplomacy. We erased our own brilliance to blend into a galaxy afraid of difference. No more masks. They had seen what we were when provoked. Now they had to face what we truly were when unbound. In that moment, standing on the bones of their fleet, hearing the stars whispering through breached holes, I felt no triumph. Only truth. The kind of truth that changes a species. We were not gods. Not monsters. Just humans. Fully revealed. And in that revelation, the galaxy had to decide. Could it live with who we were? Or would it force us to become something worse? Either way, Earth would never bow again. They agreed. Not because they understood or forgave, but because they had no choice. The Krayth. Yes, the same species that once hung their dreadnoughts above our cities like silent executioners, now walk beside us in the reconstruction. Strange allies, once drenched in conquest, now tempered by proximity to something older than violence, consequence. They learned humility not from defeat, but from the realization that they'd been allowed to exist. And the Council? Still afraid, yes, but no longer the architects of fear. Their chambers, once echoing with decrees spoken across solar systems, now tremble with quiet calculations, wondering which other species has smiled too gently for too long. As for Earth, we are not hidden anymore. Not behind silence, not behind diplomacy, and certainly not behind weakness. Our children now learn to chart starfields before they learn their native tongue. Constellations once named after gods are now named after cities lost in the bombardments. Johannesburg Minor, New Kyoto Prime, Halifax Belt. In classrooms orbiting Mars, they simulate wormhole geometry with holographic sand. They recite galactic treaties like verses. But they also study Revenant doctrine, etched not in textbooks, but in memory. It teaches them this: mercy is not silence, and strength, when buried too deep, becomes myth. Peace is possible. We feel it like wind returning to a long-abandoned valley. Trade vessels blink across quantum gateways, carrying silks woven with nanofibers, poetry encoded in UV pulses, and food whose molecules hum in alien lullabies. There are delegations now. Visitors from species who once wouldn't say our name above a whisper, now asking us to speak. Not to threaten, but to teach. And we do. Carefully. Because now they listen. But don't misunderstand. We never disarmed. Beneath the aurora domes of Antarctica, the buried vaults still breathe. Somewhere under the Pacific Trench, Protocol Revenant sleeps in bioluminescent silence. Its circuits older than memory. Its software dreaming of scenarios we hope never come. The orbital ring around Earth hums with disguised satellites. Each one a guardian. Each one capable of turning from beacon to blade in less than a second. And in the moon's shadow, there is a station with no name. Its corridors are empty, except for one room. A glass chamber filled with nothing. Except a single red switch. No one speaks of it. Even now, I'm unsure if it exists. But everyone acts as if it does. Why? Because now the galaxy knows what happens when Earth stops playing nice. We were always more than we appeared. A species of paradox, born from fire, raised in ruin. Capable of love so vast it shatters time. And violence so precise it silences worlds. They know that we once chose to forget who we were. Because remembering meant remembering the weapons too. But now, they've seen our true face. Not the rage. Not the wrath. But the terrifying clarity of a people who stopped pretending. I stood last night beneath the arc of the new spaceport in Geneva. The sky was inked with stars too numerous to name. Beside me, a child, my daughter, now grown. She looked upward and whispered, "Do you think they're still afraid of us?" I listened to the silence above, to the 1,000 empires adjusting their course when they pass near our system, to the satellites shifting positions, always watching. And I said, "Yes, but not for the reasons you think. They're not afraid we'll attack them. They're afraid we'll awaken something in them. The part of themselves they buried. The part that remembers what it is to fight for truth. And to pay the cost. Protocol Revenant remains. Not as a weapon. As a reminder. We may wear diplomacy like a robe. We may speak in the language of peace. But beneath it all, we are still human. And the galaxy will never again forget what that means. Peace feels possible now. But we never disarmed. Protocol Revenant wasn't our revenge. It was our reflection, asterisk. And now, the galaxy sees us for what we are, asterisk. You've just witnessed the untold story of Earth's reckoning. But did you catch the warning buried in our piece? If you made it this far, you are exactly the kind of viewer this universe needs. Subscribe to HFY Sci-Fi Love and War Story for more true accounts from the edges of extinction. Comment below. If Earth can do this, what else have we been hiding? Like, share, and prepare, because the next message isn't a warning. It's a beginning. The stars watched us fall. Now they'll watch us rise.